Hey guys, we are going to be talking about points, lines, and angles today. We're going to be learning some important vocabulary when it comes to those terms, and I'm going to show you a really cool resource that you're going to have access to. So in order to do that, I am going to show you a different screen, which is the digital resource that you will get to use. So this is the angles, lines, and vocabulary screen that you will actually have a digital resource for this. And I want to go over what some of these mean. So the first term that I really want to talk about are these terms ray and line. So we're going to look at these over here. As you can see, the difference between a line and a ray is this dot right here. And this dot's actually really, really important. This dot is called the vertex. So the vertex right here, you can see it. The vertex is the end point, and the arrow represents that it goes on infinitely forever. So this actual ray has one endpoint, the vertex, this point in space. And then other than that, the line goes on and on and on and on and on and on forever, which we obviously won't draw, but which we can represent with this arrow here. That is very different from a line, which goes in infinite directions both ways. So that's the big difference between a ray and a line, is that a ray has an endpoint and a line does not. Now, if we hop up here, you will see that an angle is made up of two rays. So an angle has a vertex that is shared right here, and then it is two rays sharing a vertex. So that is the definition of an angle. Then we will go into different kinds of angles. So we have an acute angle, we have an obtuse angle, and that just goes into what they measure as far as degrees. So I'm going to show you really quick, and this is a review. We learned about this at school. A 90-degree angle looks like this, also called a right angle. I actually have one right here, 90 degrees, perfect corner. We talked at school about how that's the corner of the whiteboard or the corner of a bookshelf, or pretty much any corner is that perfect 90-degree angle. Anything bigger than 90 degrees, so if we go over here, bigger than 90, that's going to be obtuse, and anything smaller than 90 is going to be acute. So if you look here, here is an acute angle. The 90-degree part would go up here, and then this is acute, it is smaller. And then here is an obtuse angle, and the 90-degree part would go about up like this. This would be about 90 degrees, usually represented by this little box here, and this is bigger, so that is an obtuse angle. So that is acute, obtuse, and right. A straight angle, on the other hand, is actually just a straight line. But the cool thing about that is you can actually tell the degree of a straight line, because if you draw a 90-degree angle right up the center, it makes two 90-degree angles. And you know that 90 plus 90 is 180. So this straight angle right here is actually a 180-degree angle. So we have acute, obtuse, right angle, and straight angle. A line doesn't have any endpoint in any direction, and a line segment actually has two endpoints. So it does have two endpoints on both sides. A ray has one endpoint and then keeps going. And the other couple terms we're going to look at are horizontal and vertical. So horizontal, a good way to remember that, horizon. The word horizon is in there. The horizon goes across. So a horizontal line goes across this way. A vertical line goes up and down this way. Now, here's a pretty cool thing. We can cross a vertical line and a horizontal line, and this is called the intersection. So think of it just like an intersection on the street, the intersection, like on a road. And this intersection happens to form 90-degree angles at each part. So that means that this is perpendicular. So that is a word that just means that when they intersected, they made 90-degree angles. They made perfectly straight 90-degree angles. Okay, now moving down here, we have parallel and congruent. So parallel means that they will never, ever, ever, ever meet. But the more important detail to know about that is the distance between the two lines needs to be the same no matter where you measure it. So let's say that since this could go on infinitely, it goes over here and this keeps going over here. No matter where you measure it, it needs to be the exact same amount. That ensures that they will never, ever, ever, ever meet. Because let's take, for example, if we had this and this, you could say, well, Miss Reeves, they're not meeting right now, right? But this arrow over here, sorry about my poor drawing, I'm using my mouse pad. This arrow over here does indicate that they go on forever. So that means that if this were to continue and if this were to continue, eventually they would intersect. So those are not parallel. So parallel, we have here, same distance the whole way over. Even if I measured them over here, it would be the exact same distance. That means they would never, ever, ever, ever meet. And congruent is basically two parallel line segments. So rather than lines that go on infinitely, this is line segments. The last thing we're going to look at is intersecting lines, which we kind of talked about already, and the actual protractor. So the protractor, and we're going to go over this a little bit more next time we have math, is the measurement tool to measure the degrees. So as you can see here, I have my angle, and my angle's right here. And this is pointing up at 120 degrees. So that is how you would read that on a protractor. And you would ask yourself, does that make sense? Because here's my 90. Does it make sense that this is bigger? It's obtuse, and so therefore it's bigger than 90. Does that measurement make sense? And it does. So that's how you would use a protractor. That is really the basic information that we're going to go over today. There are some other terms down here that you're welcome to look at, but you don't really need to go any further than that. The protractor is the last slide that we're going to look at. So that is pretty much it from me. Your problems today are going to be identifying different types of points, lines, angles, and rays. If at any point during when you're filling out the Google Forms you have a question, you can either pop back over to this video, or you can also go to that digital resource that I am sharing with you. Another option is to come into the Google Hangouts and say hi, and I can help you out with that. All right, have a great day, guys.